Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am so excited to introduce to you guys Lucy. Oh my goodness, Lucy. We are in a similar coaching program right now. And when I saw your stuff, I was like, I have to have her on my show. We've never
Yay!
talked about wholesale or retail. And I feel like this is a topic that a lot of my listeners are interested in. If not, they're already doing some of it. And like, how can I improve? And so before we do that, we've got to introduce yourself. So tell us who you are, where you're from, because your accent is freaking adorable. And then tell us how you got into this world and what it is you do.
Okay, so Lucy Farmer, and I live in Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm in the heart of the Deep South. I am a mom of two, so my kids are grown, and so I'm empty nester. And then my husband of 25 years in 2 days. So our
Oh,
anniversary is in
congrats.
2 days. Yeah, so we'll be married 25 years. And so yeah, I have been retail's been in my blood since I guess the beginning of time. At 15, I needed a job. And so I went to work for the local department store. And then I went to school and got a fashion merchandising degree and marketing degree. Got out of school, I worked for a huge department store here in Birmingham. It was called Parisian. It's closed now. But I ran a $20 million department, which at the time I didn't even realize, how big of a deal that was. I mean, I was 22, 23 years old, and that's what they gave me. And so I was like, okay, this is what we do. And then cue the children. So I decided to stay at home, but entrepreneurship is just in my blood. And so I went from creating little businesses to deciding that I wanted to own a store. So I bought a little art store, a local art store, and it was so fun. This was pre social media. So getting the word out about coming into my classes was a little bit harder than it would have been now. Actually, I closed the year that businesses started doing things on Facebook. So
No.
bad timing. And it really wasn't bad timing. Like it was a great learning experience for me. I don't believe in, like a failure being a bad thing. I believe in it. It teaches me something. So after that was over, Facebook was a thing. And so I started helping small businesses do social media. And then I created a jewelry line. And so, if you look at my timeline, like it makes sense, and how it worked out. But I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I don't really stick with one thing. And so that's what's led me into what I'm doing now. Is I still design jewelry. I sell it on my website, and then I also sell it in stores all over the United States because I have learned how to do the wholesale market. And so that's what I'm doing right now is I'm getting ready to launch a course called the School for Wholesale. So it's for product makers and creatives that have a product that they believe is something that other people want to see and that they'd love to see in stores. And so I want to help them learn how to take the rope. I'll show them the ropes and then show them how to do it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool. And your jewelry line is all across the nation, if I remember right from your
Yes.
bio, which is just all
Mm-hmm.
over, which is so cool. What a
Yeah.
journey. Like, oh my goodness, that's
Yeah.
so neat.
Yeah.
I
When I
love
went
it.
to market in 2016 for the first time, and we opened over 100 stores, and one of the stores was in Alaska. And I was like, what? I mean, because I'm in Alabama, I'm over here on one side of the
Yeah.
United States, and Alaska's on the clear other side. So, yeah, it was pretty neat.
Oh my goodness, this is blowing my mind. I absolutely love this. Okay, so let's dive in and talk about some of the nitty gritty. So, one of the first things that we're going to talk about is wholesale versus retail.
Yeah.
So, dive into that. What does that mean? What does that look like? Like, I don't even know what question to ask because I'm like, I don't know. So,
Yeah, well, that's a perfect way to get started is thinking about the difference in wholesale and retail. And so, retail is what we all know of. So you walk into a store, you buy something, that's what's considered retail. If I'm selling something on my website and you place an order directly on lucysinspired.com, that's considered retail. But if you own that store, so if you own the little boutique down the street and you've got to find those products somewhere, and you also have to make money. And so in order to make money, I have to sell my products at a wholesale cost so that you can buy them at what we call wholesale, so that you're going to sell them at retail. And so what that looks like is I have a price point that I have to make, in order to make money. That's my wholesale price. And then I sell it to these stores at that price, and then they mark it up again in order to make money themselves and pay their rent and pay their overhead. And then that's what the end user gets. You're the retail customer.
Oh,
Does that make
gotcha.
sense?
Yeah. So how do you find products that are cheap enough to sell it, or do you just make them? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah, well, it's funny. One of the biggest problems that I see that makers have is pricing their products too low. And so, what we as makers, we're, for lack of, I always say this, and every time I think you've got to get a better word, but we work in our basements. Like I always think of that deep, dark dungeon, like we're down in our basements with no lights and we're, whittling away. It's not the truth. Mine has plenty of light in it, but that's where, my studio is. And so I work from home, which is the beauty in what I do. And I'm making these products. And because I know how to make them and I'm using my hands, I'm working from home, I don't feel like as a maker that it's worth that much. Like you think of your worth. So if you are, comparing yourself, or if you're professionally trained in something, you have this professional training, therefore you can charge more. And so a lot of makers, what happens is we find something on Pinterest, we find something on Etsy, we are already, grew up using my hands with handicraft. So cross stitching, I smocked all my children's clothing, I was always working with my hands. Taking art classes, playing music, all of those beautiful things. And in doing that, I learned innovation. Through art, I believe that you find innovation. And so you can create things as you continue to grow, so that as you continue to practice whatever art, I'm constantly painting and making jewelry and rearranging furniture, rearranging pictures on the wall. All of that is considered creativity to me. And I could figure out a way to sell all of those things. So all that to say, when it comes to pricing, I feel like because it comes naturally and easy for us, we don't always price ourselves to the point that we're not valuing ourselves enough. And so that's one of the things that I want to help makers do, is find that pricing. And so it may be that you are buying your stuff at retail. You may be buying your products, the supplies that it takes to make your products at retail. So I would help you find those wholesale resources. So you would be getting a better price. Another thing is when you buy one of something, it costs a little more than if you buy 100 of something. So you have to think about things like that. So when it comes to pricing, I think that that's one of the hardest things that wholesalers, that product makers do have to deal with, because the retailer has to make money. And so then if I outprice myself and say, oh, well, my product, if I compare it to someone, let's just say in New York City, because the cost of living there is a lot more than it is here in Alabama. And so if I think, oh, well, that person can charge, $400 for their jewelry, then my local store, if I say that my wholesale is 200, it's normally right at half. It's a little, you should put a little bit more margin in there, but usually you kind of look at it as a half price. I'm going to sell it to my local boutique for $150 or $175. Well, they're not going to be able to sell it for that. So there's so many things that go into pricing. And so it's one of those, there's definitely formulas that we can look at. But you want to make sure that you're making money, and you want to make sure that retailer's going to make money too, or because if they're not going to make money, they're not going to continue to buy from you. So it's a double-edged sword, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about of like, okay, how do I price myself high enough where I'm being paid what I'm worth, but how do I not price myself out of being in stores? That is such, oh my goodness, I love that. And then you also talked about pricing being local, because you're right, there are places that are cheaper than other places to live. And so make sure that you're keeping that in mind as well. Oh my goodness, I am loving this. Okay. Do you have anything else, any other tips or tricks, wholesale versus retail, before we move on?
Yeah. Let's see. So the other good thing about selling wholesale, so a lot of times then after the pricing comes into factor, people start thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to make as much money if I'm selling at wholesale because I have to, my price is going to be lower. But the beauty in wholesale is you can sell multiples. So if you're going to come to my website and you're going to buy something from me directly, I might make, let's just say I have a product that's worth $20. Wholesale, I sell it for 10. So I'm going to make that full $20 when you buy it from me from my website. But if a store decides to buy it from me at $10, they're probably going to buy 30. So now I've made $300 versus $20. So, when you create relationships with these wholesale buyers, and you find the right people for your for your product, that they can sell it to the right client, wholesale is definitely going to be a much better revenue, income for you.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I had a question and then I lost it. So like,
Sorry.
oh, I remember. With these, do you suggest that products and makers do both sell retail one-on-one, like on their website, and wholesale? Or do you say pick a lane and just stay there?
I think it's hard in the world that we're in today. Things have changed. I've been doing this for 30 years or been on one side or the other for 30 years. And so now that we've just gone through 2020 and everyone stayed at home. And last year, I don't have the exact number, but it's close to 75% of the people bought online, where in 2016, it was like 20%. The growth was normal, was
Yeah.
considerably going to grow anyway. But at the same time, in 2020, we learned how to shop from home. And so a lot of these retailers have gone online. They have their own online stores too. I think it's important to have both because I think you need to have that website that shows your story, that shows your products from the maker's point of view. But at the same, and so then I think you should also have it, where you're selling to wholesalers. Your wholesalers are who you want to, the people that you're selling, the stores that you're selling to, you want those people to be taken care of. You want to put them first. You want to make sure that you're not outpricing them. In the first few years of my business, I never put anything on sale because I didn't want to undercut my retailers. I wanted to make sure that they were that no one was coming to me. And I would much rather anyone go to, my friends would call me and they would say, okay, do you want me to just come to your house and I'll buy it from you? That way you can make all the money. And I'm like, no, I need you to go to that store and buy it because I need her to reorder. You're going to buy one piece from me, but that store's going to buy 20, and so it just I think it's kind, for someone to say, here, let me do you a favor. When in reality, once you know the ins and outs of it, you realize that buying from that store is keeping that store afloat. It's keeping the economy, afloat. It's bringing business into the community. And it's, giving someone an outlet for their creativity. And so there's so many reasons why we want to have those retail stores. 75% of the people shopping online last year is an incredible number. But what if we couldn't go into a store? What if everything all of a sudden is online and you can't go into store? I mean, like your sweater that you have on, like I want to touch it and feel it, of course it's easy for me to go to a shop that I know that I trust and buy something from them. But if it's something new that they brought in, how do I know how it fits? How do I know what it feels like? How do I know it doesn't have, something in it that I'm allergic to, or that's not soft to my skin, or, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I think we all love the convenience of shopping from home, but having those local retailers that are still open where we can still go in and try on the shoes is really important to our mentality as much as the economy. Yeah.
It really is. My husband today looked at me and he's like, I think you need to go see people. Like, do you want to go just walk in a store? Like, do you just need to be in, human interaction? And I was like, I think so. Because you're right. Ordering from online, it's so much easier. I've got 3 little kids. I homeschool. It's hard to leave. We've got 3 to 4 feet of snow outside. It's easier to just like order online. Mm-hmm. But man, nothing beats being there in person, trying it on, seeing how it looks, feeling the fabric or the weight of the jewelry piece. I absolutely love that. I agree.
I mean, retail therapy is a real thing.
It is. We all need it.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe this is covered later, but this was just a question I thought of was, do you try to go for those little boutiques or do you try to go for like chain stores?
Well, I think it's both. Obvious, I think the best thing to do, and so this does go into kind of the 4 ways you can start selling wholesale. But that local boutique is going to be your first shot. Like that's the person that you're going to go after first. And I say go after, that sounds terrible, but like you're gonna target them and say, hey, what do you think about this? I'm local, I'm a maker, because we all love that. We love to find something that's been locally made in our community. And so that is going to help that retailer sell it. And it may not, it may not work for them. It may not be the right fit, but then there may be another retail, I would test the market. That's what we kind of call that, is testing the market. You don't walk in the store and say, hey, can I speak to the owner? Like a vacuum salesman, can I speak to the owner? I've got something to sell. I don't think they do that anymore, door-to-door vacuum sales. But, you make an appointment, you send over a line sheet, you send over pictures of your products, you send over your story, your bio, so that they know who's coming in and see if you can get an appointment. And I do have found that most local places really want to support the local makers. We've got a couple of stores here in Birmingham that only sell Alabama goods, which is really cool. So if I'm sending a friend something that lives somewhere else and I want them to have something from Alabama, I know exactly where I'm going, so that's really a
awesome.
fun thing to do. But I think it's also just, finding that local place kind of gives you confidence, it's going to give you a little bit of confidence rather than, because when you go into the big box places, it's a lot harder to get in. You really kind of start with that local person, and then that local, like I have a couple of local stores that have 5 and 6 locations, so they have 5 or 6 locations. I'm in all those locations. I had pitched some of my products to Neiman Marcus and got to the buyers and was sending them samples and sending them line sheets and talking to them back and forth. And the capacity that they needed from me was much more than I wanted to do mentally. I just didn't want to be coming up with a new line of jewelry, new 20 pieces every 2 or 3 months. And when you get into those big box stores, like a Neiman Marcus department store, something like that, they also want you to send markdown money. So if your merchandise isn't selling, then they want you to pay for them, using those markdowns. They also may send something back and then, want to get, their money back. And so when you get into a big store like that, you've really got to have your ducks in a row, and you've really got to be in a full-time, good systems. My target market are these, people that are either pre-children or their children are small and they've got a little extra time on their hands, but then we get to that point where there's no extra time on our hands because we have the children that are going all the different places. But then you have people like me who, my kids are gone. They're, trying to make it on their own. And I'm trying to, figure out who I am again. And so now I'm like, let me create something new and create a new product or create a new way to help other people get their products in the stores. And so it's definitely, there's a lot of good pros and cons to being in a local boutique and being in, because if you get in like an Anthropologie, you've made it. Like that's kind of what in this world we kind of look at that. But then Anthropologie also has a drop shipment. This is vocabulary lesson, but a drop shipment, would be like I think Amazon does a lot of this, they ship from the location. So I would ship, Anthropologie would sell my products on their website, but I would ship it to the customer. So that would be like a drop ship. Yeah. But they do small batch, they'll find a maker or someone that can make things, in smaller batches, not making 1,000 of one piece, which is really cool, that a store like that would be interested in, someone that can't make as many pieces.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That is so cool. Okay. I feel like this leads right into what we're talking next, which is like, you're making these products, you're making this jewelry or this art or whatever it is. How do you know you're ready to just like fly, start putting yourself out there?
Well, there's so many things that go into that. So pricing is very important because you don't want to underprice yourself and you don't want to outprice yourself. We talked about that. You also want to know that your product is proven. So of course, my mom was my first customer, and my cousin and my friend down the street, and then, my brother-in-law's friends on Christmas Eve when they hadn't bought their mom and grandparents anything, like those were my first customers. But at the same time, then they called me and they said, Lucy, they loved it. Like this was a great. And so being able to say your product is proven, that other people do like it. Another thing that I would say about, and it doesn't have to be, but one good thing to think about is how does your product look different from what's already out there? So, if you're making wood signs or t-shirts or pillows, there's a ton of people out there, but is your handwriting different? Does your handwriting, portray something different, that someone is looking for? The same thing with like a pillow. Is it a specific fabric? What about it stands out and makes it a little different? Or you could you may be creating a product that's completely different that no one's ever seen before. Those products, if they're proven, are probably your best bet. Not to say that a coffee mug, with the saying that you say all the time that everybody laughs at, is not going to sell a ton of, because, those work too. I have a client, she's not necessarily a client, but she and we work together a little bit, and she makes shaped crayons. And so she takes old, old and new now because she's making so many, but she would take old crayons and break them up and then take the wrappers off, and then she melts them into different shapes. And so now, instead of having a broken crayon, you have the shape of a dinosaur or your name.
Cool.
Like I gave my nieces for Valentine's Day an I, and then a heart, and then a U. So like they got 3 crayons, and they're all different colors. They're all different rainbow colors. So it's just, anyway, a product like that is very small. The margins are not very big, but everybody wants it. It's something that everybody can sell in every store, whether it's a gift shop or a toy shop or Hallmark or the hospital gift shop. Those are,
Oh yeah.
hospital gift shops are where it's at right there. So, just trying to find what your product is and defining a couple of little parameters like price, where your pricing is, what your systems are. If you can't produce, the girl with the crayons today, we were talking to, she was like, Lucy, my orders already for Easter I can tell they're going to be crazy. I'm going to need help. And so there's a local place in Birmingham that helps. It's a nonprofit though, so like you take your product in, they'll price it out. They'll tell you how much it'll cost to make, and then they can produce them for you. And so,
wow.
She's going to go reach out to them and see if they can help her, because she is, at that point where she can't do it by herself. And so you have to think about that, like the dream is to be in an Anthropologie or to be in a Neiman Marcus or to be in, this store that's ordering hundreds of thousands of pieces from you over, hopefully not in one day, because that would, you'd have to have a warehouse, which you might, that might be your goal. And so I think it's thinking about the future, it's creating goals for yourself, realizing, how you can systemize everything out, and if it's going to work with your, the way you want to live your life. So like for me in 2018, that's when my daughter was graduating from high school. My son graduated in 2020. And I realized in the middle of 2018, I needed more time with my family. In the next 2 years, they were going to college and they were going to move out west into Colorado and live, and so I was like, okay, that's really far away. I need to spend a lot of time with them. And so I didn't want to be, creating 10 to 20 pieces for Neiman Marcus every 2 to 3 months, and then producing those and then shipping them out to them, and then hoping that they sell, helping them with marketing then. So it's still a continuous work, because if I didn't do all those things, I may have to pay markdown dollars, or I may have to take some of them back. So I think, trying to get into this business is very much, you have to be organized. And you have to really know what your numbers are. You really have to know what your costs are, what your overhead is, all your expenses and your supplies, the time it takes you. That's another thing. We love to make these things. We love to use our hands. And so I could, sit and make jewelry for hours and not even think twice about it, but I still have to pay myself. And in the beginning, it's just a hobby. And so you don't think about paying yourself. So you don't think about that price. Then once it turns into, I'm going to just manifest Neiman Marcus again,
Yeah.
buying jewelry again, from me, and they are going to need 100,000 pieces. So I'm going to need to get my systems in order and make sure that that works with my life.
Okay, so question, because as soon as you said systems, I know my audience was like, oh shoot, then it's not for me.
Oh,
Because sometimes as creatives, we
mm-hmm.
are so good at creating, but the numbers or
Yeah.
systems,
Mm-hmm.
they sound too stiff. Maybe it doesn't feel like our area of genius. So, what did you do to help tap into that where you could know those numbers and they weren't big, hairy, and scary? Or how did you get those systems? Did you hire someone? Did you just buck up and do it? Like, tell us, what did you do?
Well, I'll be honest. When I graduated from college and I started working for corporate America in the department store, they had it already. We lived by spreadsheets. I didn't live by going to New York and buying beautiful clothing. That was what I thought I was going to be doing and watching fashion shows on the runway, doing all those beautiful things. That was not what I did as a buyer. I looked at spreadsheets and I determined how many pieces were going in how many stores and how many things were selling. If they weren't selling, how much to mark them down, and all of those scary, yucky, horrible business things that we don't want to think about, that we want to hire out. Because I'd still do that, but in that process, just learning how to do all that, I didn't do it for a long time after. But then once I started running this business on my own, I was like, I have to know. I mean, even now, even to this day, something will come through on PayPal and I'll be like, wait, what is that $21 for? And I'm like, I forgot to put that in my expense sheet. I got to add 21 more dollars, into my expense sheet. Or when something renews for the year, it's like my Zoom, it's like on an annual plan. And I'm like, oh man, figure out, I got to add that to that month. My expenses are going to be an extra $200 or an extra $250, whatever that looks like. And so I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to. And so I've got spreadsheets already set up where you can look at your expenses, where you can look at your supplies, where I separate, the different incomes that I have, where I pay shipping, where I pay taxes, because those are all things that we don't want to think about either.
Yes.
Setting up that. I mean, I learned the hard way not to, I didn't pay my sales tax on the day that it was due. I paid it like the week later, and they charged me like $100 extra, where my sales tax might've been $100. And so then if I'd paid it on time, I would have gotten a discount. I would have gotten, like 10% discount. And instead they charged me double. So I don't recommend, I have a timer now. I have a reminder on my phone to pay my taxes. Because right now I'm not selling that. This is the time of the year where everything's kind of slow. And so I'm not selling that much. So my sales taxes are very low. So if I had to pay that extra fine, I'd be very mad at myself. So it's very important, because as a maker, again, we go to Hobby Lobby and we're like, oh, I got a coupon. Let me buy this new paint, or that's on sale, and so you kind of, because you're a creator and you think, well, that would be fun to make, where they leave those little things in the aisle that you tear off, and it's like a DIY. And you're like, let me buy all the supplies because they're on sale this week. But when you're running a business, does that go into your personal account, or does that come out of your business account? And a lot of times the way I run my business, if it's a hobby, it's still coming out of my business account, because I look at it as maybe a new product will come out of this, but I have to budget for that. Like I have to make sure that I have enough money for that. And so I think that's one of the things that, in this course that I've created that launches in March, that's where I've already got all this set up, like I've got the spreadsheets, I've got the workbooks to go through and determine, and I want to make it fun, like, cause I don't want it to be like going to an accounting class, I mean, granted, I met my husband in accounting class, so I guess
Cute.
something good came out of that, but Matt, when someone says add 27 plus 48, I'm like, where's my phone? Cause I need my calculator. I don't want to add it. It's not that I can't, I just don't want to. And so I think if we put these things in place, that make it easy. It's just like, even posting on social media or posting to doing a podcast. You have to have some kind of organization or it's just not going to work.
I love this. Oh my goodness. I love this. And if you're listening and you're still like, I don't know how to do this, it's okay to hire it out. Okay.
Yes.
Like I've got a bookkeeper because bookkeeping stresses me out and she gives me all my numbers. So I know my numbers, but I don't have to do the math myself to know the numbers.
Yeah.
She organizes it. She sends me my profit and loss statement. And so don't be afraid to look at hiring it out. And so anyways, I love that. Okay, let's jump in then. Now that we know kind of like where to start and how to start, what are the 4 ways that you can get started with this product business, right? Like getting out, getting retail and wholesale. What are the 4 ways?
The 4 ways. So if you want to start selling, the best thing to do, the very first thing you need to do is go to your family and friends. So and your mom is going to tell you it's beautiful. And believe her, because she's not going to lie. I mean, she might, fib a little. She might cover her up a little, but she's also going to wear it and show her friends. Your best friend is going to wear it and they're going to tell their friends. And so it's not just, giving it to your mom and your mom telling you that it's great, but when she wears it, because I have full proof. If my mom was standing here right now, she's one of my best salesmen.
I love that.
She lives in a little small town in Tennessee, and she's probably sold as much of my jewelry as I have. Just in that one little tiny. She's like, Lucy, I think everybody's got one now.
That's so cute.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, tell them to buy one for their friends. But so that's the number one thing is to go find your friends and family. Because they're not just going to wear it. They're not just going to tell you they love it. If they love it and wear it, they're going to tell everybody about it. The other thing is going into consignment. And so a lot of places, a lot of local stores, you can go in, and especially if you have something small, there's places where you can go set up a booth and you pay a fee and you can sell your products. You can go into a consignment store, and they pay you. Usually when you do consignment, you get a little bit better margin. And so you kind of split that like 70-30, you get 70%, they get 30%. Sometimes it's 60-40, just depending on what kind of store it is. So that would be the second place I would tell you to go. That's not my favorite because I'm really bad about, I don't have good systems in place for keeping up with that inventory versus the inventory that's on my website versus the inventory that's going out to my wholesale clients. And so that's where number 3 is those local boutiques. So you're going to go to those local boutiques that will buy it outright from you. So they're going to pay you as soon as the products are delivered and they're going to sell it. And then they're going to reorder and reorder and reorder and reorder. And the great thing about these people is you're building a relationship with them. The greatest thing you can do is go do a pop-up shop. So if you email a store and say, hey, I think my products will be great in your store. Can I send you my line sheet? Can I send you some pictures? And they say, yeah, that looks great. I'd love to come to a pop-up shop. And so you go in, set up a little table inside their store on a busy Saturday, sell as much as you want to sell. They may take a cut. They may run it through the register or you may run it through yours. I've done both. They'll see how much you sell and they'll say, okay, great. I just did this with Swoozy's. It's a local store that has about 10 locations. When I say local, there's a local store here, but they're in Tennessee and in Texas and Georgia and Florida. And so, it was great because I went in, did the pop-up shop, and then they placed an order. So that's a great way to start with those local boutiques. And then the next thing would be go into the wholesale market. So there's markets all over the United States, Vegas, New York, Dallas, Atlanta. We have them in Montgomery. We have them in, I think, Biloxi. I was trying to think of that town in Mississippi, but lots of wholesale market. And then stores will come, that's where all the stores come in. They have to be approved. They have to be, they have to be able to prove that they can sell, they're going to resell it. They're not just, buying it to give it to their friends. And so they're going to resell it for you. And so that's where you meet them. That's where you make a connection with them. They can see all your products because you set up like a booth. And then that's where you meet, your future store owners that you're going to build those relationships with. So I think it's intimidating, actually. I was going to say it's easy to do, but it's intimidating, to think, the store owner, you think knows what they're doing, and they do. But, a store owner, you're like, oh, what if they don't choose me? What if they don't like me? And at the same time, that store owner is always looking for something new. They don't want to carry the same thing over and over and over again. They don't want to have to go out to market, right during COVID, last year, a lot of the markets were closed. That's one more thing that I'll tell you. So there's really, I guess, 5 technically. You can go to the wholesale market that is in, the big civic centers all over the country, or they have online wholesale markets. And so there are places called Hello Abound, Fair. I can't think of, there's tons of them. Like there's probably 10 or 12 at least right now. It's a new thing that's come out, that's been happening and growing in the last 4 or 5 years. But they have a website, and you put your products on their website. There's one that I work with right now that if I send them my customers and my customers buy from them through their website, I don't pay any commission. But if one of their customers who's never seen my products before buys through their website, then I pay them a commission. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, that does.
So that's kind of, I guess there's really 5 ways at this point, or, we add your mom as a bonus, even though I feel like that, getting your mom and your best friend and your aunt, and your grandmother to wear, and your hairdresser. I mean, like whoever does your hair, like if she has on one of your necklaces, she's got an audience that's huge. I mean, we keep saying we're going to try to get them on the girls that sing at church, because like you're staring at them the whole time. And especially with, with the video, you're watching church now. And so they've got that necklace on and you're like, oh, that necklace is so cute. I wonder where they got that.
Right.
So it's like, finding people, I mean, sure, we could call influencers, but I believe that I would much rather have my mom wearing my jewelry than, I don't even know. I always say Kim Kardashian because she's just, I guess, the first influencer that ever was. But I'd still rather my mom be wearing my jewelry than Kim Kardashian, because I know my mom loves it, and Kim Kardashian is just doing it because I'm paying her for it. So, I think sometimes we discount that fact that when we give our friends and our family jewelry or a piece of art, and their friends see it, they're gonna be your biggest cheerleader. So they're definitely number 1.
Oh my goodness, I love this so much. And you're right, my mom was one of my first customers too. And I love it. And it's so true. And your friends are going to be so proud of you too, that they're just going to be like beaming when they talk about it. Okay, this was so mind-blowing. And as you were talking about the 4 ways to get started, I was thinking, so I've got a membership site full of creative entrepreneurs, and I teach them how to market and sell their business online. But as you were speaking, I was like, oh my goodness, I already know like 7 ladies in there who I'm like, girl, let's get you into local boutiques. And it's so cool. This is a world I've never really looked at before, because I come from a service-based business. So I was a portrait photographer, and now I teach creatives how to show up on Instagram, create marketing systems through email, so that they can start selling. And so this is such a cool way to look at getting your product and service and actually get out there. And I'm like excited for them. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole world out there for, photographer and print, and I mean, selling your photos. I mean, stock photos, but also selling them, on car stationery and all that kind of stuff. You sell wholesale. So it is definitely a world that, if you just walk into a store, you don't really think about. I mean, you might think, I wonder who got this, or I wonder who made this. But when you go to a market, like Atlanta, it's 3 buildings that are 20 stories. There are over 100,000 people that walk through those 3 buildings. You're probably not going to see all 100,000 of them, but it's amazing to get to that point. And then you see your stuff. I mean, like, you think your mom's proud to show off your work. Wait until she sees it in the store. Like when she sees it in the local store, or she sees it, goes on vacation and sees it. Like I probably have 100 pictures where people have sent me, I see you're here. Look, here's your work. Here's your, here's your jewelry. Cool. What I just found, and it's just so fun that your friends and family are just as excited about it as you are. So, that's why I always say, that's your first place to start, because they're going to help your self-confidence. They're going to tell it's eventually going to get to the right people. And then, eventually you can get in Neiman Marcus or Anthropologie or Urban Outfitters, whatever your favorite store is, and one of my little worksheets that we have a brain dumps, page that is just full of lines that's dream stores. Like, don't tell me that you want to get in, the drugstore down the street. Like, tell me the store that you dream, like where you would love to walk in and see your products. And then we figure out a way to get you there.
Oh my goodness, this is so cool. Lucy, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about this. I know there's so many product makers listening to this podcast that just got really excited. And this is so fun. So tell us, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Tell us about this course that you are making. How can we get into that? Like, give us all the deets.
Yeah. So I'm Lucy's Inspired over all social media platforms. So it's LUCYS and then Inspired. Some people forget that S. But Lucy's Inspired is Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and then that's my website, lucysinspired.com. And then from there, you can get to the wait list for the wholesale course. I have a school for creatives where I kind of help the same thing. I help other makers and creatives just get the basics, going on their business. They're all those, basement workers. And so they're all just like, how do I do this? I want to make this bigger. And so we do that in School for Creatives. So, and then School for Wholesale is the wholesale course that's launching March 11th. So I'm doing a master class for that on March 11th. So we'll, determine whether you're ready, or I'll tell you the ways you need to make sure you're ready. And then you can determine whether you want to take the class or not.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. And any of you guys who are driving and are like, crap, I can't write this, we'll have all the links, like always, in the show notes that you can connect with her on all of these places. That's awesome. Okay, before we let you go, we are going to play what I call the Dream Makers game. And for those listening, we're actually going to do a little twist. We're changing up the game. It used to be a word association game. And I thought, you know what? We've done this for about a year and a half, and I'm ready for something new. My creative soul. I'm like ready for something new. So we're doing something called the 5 favorites. And so I'm just going to ask Lucy 5 of her favorite things. So the first one is, Lucy, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food. That's really hard. I mean, I like all the food. Growing up though, I would only eat French fries.
No way. I love that.
But now my taste buds have expanded and I'll pretty much eat anything. So, but French fries, I mean, that's still, if French fries come as the side, I'm always going to get the French fries. I'm not going to get the salad.
I'm the same. I love French fries. Okay. What is your favorite TV show or movie?
Oh, let's see. That's hard too. I'm trying to think of what we watched last night. It was a movie. It was like a Netflix movie. I think it's like just released this week. I Care a Lot.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
It's a little disturbing.
Oh,
what this lady does. So I wouldn't say that it's my favorite show, but it's like top of mind because I just watched it last night. It was very interesting what she does. So I'm pretty sure it's called If You Care a Lot. It was like number 2 in the US, on Netflix. So it'll pop up in the top when you're looking.
Oh, awesome. Okay. What is your favorite book?
Oh, gosh, it's so funny. I've been reading the New Testament since the new year. And so immediately the Bible popped in my head.
I love that.
Listening to The Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd. So that is a eye-opening. It's also, based on Christianity, religion. But it's a little, it's opening my mind. So
really cool. That's awesome. What is one of your favorite podcasts that you're listening to right now?
I mean, how do I name them all?
Right? I've got like 25 in my library.
My favorite podcast of all time. So if I'm ever I always make sure that everyone's listening to How I Built This.
Oh,
with Guy
that's a good one.
Raz. Yeah. You know, like that one to me is inspiring because you hear these creators who created something because of a need most of the time. And then they just turned it into millions of dollars, you know, like I mean, Sarah Blakely is my idol. Like
Right?
I could just, if I met Sarah Blakely, it would be awesome. And my whole family knows it. Like my daughter and all of her friends know who Sarah Blakely is, you know, because I'm like, look, y'all got to pay attention to her. You know, don't keep paying attention to these men out here. You need to be paying attention to what Sarah Blakely's doing because she's making it easy for us. So yeah, How I Built This is definitely number one podcast I've ever heard. So,
Oh,
and
I
all of
love
them,
that.
you know, like I could listen to all of them.
Yeah. Okay. That's so cool. I haven't listened to an episode of theirs in a while. So I'm going to go back and listen to it because oh, man, so inspiring and so
It is.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. Last favorite is, what is your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur?
Is there? No, honestly, right now, it's just something. I feel like it's something new all the time, you know, and maybe that's just my experience because I like to change things. Um, but I do, and especially in the world that I'm in right now, like helping other people. That's what I love about it, is just showing people how they can get their products out into the world, or how they can take whatever they're doing and make it bigger or make it, you know, stronger and just be seen and heard and known. And so I think it's that newness, you know, like I love, my favorites are the emerging artists, like the people that are just getting started and just trying to figure out where they're going. And so being an entrepreneur, I think it's in that, you know, like in that courting stage, you know, I guess it's like when you're dating, you know, and it's like in the very beginning when you're just trying to figure everything out, you know, and starting something new. You know, of course, I guess it'd be fine if I was making millions of dollars as an entrepreneur, but I really do think that it's that newness, you know, that fresh part of the beginning of entrepreneurship that's my favorite.
Oh, I love that. Oh my goodness, Lucy, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all your knowledge and for playing the game. It was, oh my goodness, such a blast. I absolutely loved this interview. This was so much fun. And I feel like I've learned so much. So thank you so much for coming on here and talking to my people. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I hope I didn't overwhelm people. I know I can get a little rambly and get excited. So if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or send me an email. I'd love to answer anything you've got.